Everybody, so we're going live again for another incredible podcast episode, and today I have my friend Jose coming over to share his wonderful words of wisdom. This guy is a professional speaker, and he's going to be able to come here today and share his incredible words with the world, with you guys, because every time I've heard him speak, I've learned something new every single time. So we're going to get him up now, and he's going to share his incredible words and his journey with you guys today. So thank you so much for coming on, everybody. I'm just going to invite him up now, so just bear with us. Jose!
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
Can you hear me okay? Can you see me?
I can hear you, I can see you, my friend.
My friend, as I said to you, I'm going through this crazy cold at the moment, but hey, we'll make it work and I'm excited to be here. I haven't done an Instagram live in a while. I mean, years ago, I was actually doing them almost every day, but it's been a while. But I'm not rusty or anything. I'm more than ready.
Amazing, man. I can't wait as well, and I feel privileged for you to be here with me on a live, because you mentioned you haven't done one for a while now. So yeah, I really look forward to sort of going deep today and learning more about you and your words of wisdom. Like I mentioned a moment ago, I've heard you speak on many different platforms, and I'm inspired by you. So yeah, so let's jump straight in today. So Jose, I'd like to ask you some questions. And the first question really is, who are you? What do you do? And can you just tell us a little bit about your life growing up, your journey, and what got you here today?
Have we got a couple of days to go through that?
As long as you need, my friend.
Look, I like to say that I'm a legal Venezuelan living in the UK. All right, that's me today. I'm Venezuelan is part of my identity. I've got my Swedish mom in the call right now, so I also consider myself Swedish because I lived in Sweden for a year many years ago when I was 16, like 10 years ago, no, like 20, like 25. It's been a while. So that's me, brother. I consider myself international. Professionally, I'm an international communication and influence expert. So my purpose, if you want to call it something, is to help people to communicate effectively across borders. And this is not just public speaking. This is actually communicating in the way we're doing it right now, leading your teams effectively, influencing, creating positive influence, regardless of our culture, regardless of our beliefs, regardless of the language or the accent we've got. So that's how I tend to present myself. And what got me here? 42 years of life. I'll let you ask me another question because otherwise I can go one way or another. So I want you to direct me, please.
Thank you so much, man, for sharing that with us. So, yeah, there's a couple of things you mentioned there. So the first one that I want to ask you actually is, you say I'm a legal Venezuelan living in the UK. So people might be hearing this now thinking, what's going on? Like, how is he in the UK, etc. So, what took you from Venezuela and got you to the UK? What was the journey? What did that look like for you?
Look, I remember I always start by sharing this story. I was 5 years old and I'm having a conversation with my mom and just trying not to confuse the audience. My Venezuelan mom, my biological mom, mi mama. And because I've got many moms that have taken care of me depending on the different countries I've been to, like Mama Mia, for instance, who is on this call. So I remember having that conversation, Ryan, and I'm saying to my mom, I want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to travel. I want to be international. So same presentation, introduction that I did for me now, I did 40, no, not 40, 37 years ago, roughly. And since then, I've been preparing to travel. So my first opportunity finally came when I was 16 and this exchange student program came to our town because I was living in a city called Cumana by the ocean, and that'll be the east of the country of Venezuela. And that was my first opportunity. I traveled to Sweden. I traveled all across the country, presenting myself, my speaking about Venezuela as well. So that's how I really got into presenting in a different language because after a month of being in Sweden, I started presenting in English and in Swedish. And my English was okay. My Swedish was, well, no, my English wasn't okay. My Swedish was worse than okay. But hey, I managed to learn the basics. I put myself out there and I started enjoying it. So I went back to Venezuela. Guess what? I kept on looking for my career. It had to do something with international business. So I studied international business, customs. Then I left Venezuela, lived in Spain because I wanted to have a certification of my career in Europe. So I did again a master's in international business. Then I found a job that took me to the UK, and the rest could be history for now. We're making more history throughout this call. So that's what got me to the UK back in 2007.
Wow, man, what a journey! And thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, I have some more questions, obviously. So, you mentioned back then I believe you said 5 years old. You had a vision, a dream. You wanted to travel. You know, you wanted to be international. You wanted to be global. And by the time you were 16, you then say took the uncomfortable action, which was to go and travel the world, go and see different parts of the world, new cultures, new people. So I want to ask you a question then, which is, how important would you say it is for someone to have a vision for their life, for the things that they want to do, whether it's travel, whether it's business, whatever it is? How important is it to have a vision first before going on this path of purpose?
Well, I'm going to say it is very important to have, if you want to call it vision, if you want to call it purpose, if you want to call it doing what you want to do, what you like doing, what you think is going to create an impact, it is very, very important. But then make sure that vision is also very flexible, okay? Because then one of the things when I speak about having a vision of that thing you're after, even, if you still don't know it, but you're looking for it, because I've lost my path on many occasions, but I kept on reconnected to that thing, which is more than a vision, it's what makes me feel alive. But then make sure that is, as I said, flexible, because I want it to be international, but I didn't want to go to Sweden. I wanted to go to Australia back then. But obviously, the points I scored didn't enable me to go to Australia. And I was about not to go to Sweden. And then my mom encouraged me, Jose, I mean, this is still a great opportunity, go to Sweden. So I went to Sweden. So I reconnected with that thing I wanted. And then it took me to some other places. Yeah. So again, have that vision, but make sure it's flexible because things change. And life is a bit, it can be a rocky roller coaster ride, whatever you want to call it. But it is important that you have that thing that you want. And it's funny, Ryan, you asked me that, and it's a bit of reflection time for me as well. Because as I said, I'm 42, but then this year I finally published my first book, and that book has got the word global in it. So you see that it keeps on reconnecting. And I didn't do it on purpose at the beginning when I said I wanted to write a book. I didn't know what it was going to be about specifically, but then again, it keeps on reconnecting. But I didn't know I wanted to write that book specifically. It was again flexible. So I go around, and then finally hit the bullseye.
So what you mentioned there, like I'm also a big believer as in being flexible with the pathway to your dreams because I believe like you need two pinpoint locations for any dream. You need to know exactly where you are in this moment now and exactly where you want to be. And then the flexible part, which is the middle part, the pathway to get from where you are to your dream, it has to be flexible because it is called the messy middle part. Because you mentioned there, you wanted to go to Australia, but you end up finding yourself in a different country because things change in life. Like you can't be so solid with the plan because as much as we set plans in our lives, things come and knock us straight off track. But anyone listening, if you've been knocked off track, sometimes that's the universe or God or whatever you believe in. That's their way of saying knocking you off track. But sometimes you may say come off of your path in this present moment to be then put onto an even better path to an even better destination in the future. So you need to be flexible with the plans and say deal with any cards that you've been dealt along the way because we don't know what's going to happen along the way. So I just want to say thank you again for sharing that with us.
Hey, thank you for the summary, my friend. That was very good. Just to add to it, I mean, it's just focusing on the process or focusing on the journey and not necessarily the outcome, but then having some sort of clarity in order to
Mm.
get there. Because, I mean, if I think about it, years ago, I was aiming for a career in business and I got to a certain level, but then I decided this is not for me anymore. So what do I do now? But again, it reconnected to that internationality, as I call it in the book, that I want, that I want and that I want to be part of. Yeah, let's crack on, brother.
And what you mentioned there also, Jose, it's so important because many people they set out a plan or a path or a goal, for instance, a vision in their life. And let's just use let's say a job or a career, for instance. They go to school, young teenagers go to school, they learn something for 3, 4, 5 years. And because they've got this plan in their mind that they're going to become a doctor or a lawyer, for instance, that they have to go the whole way and actually become that and stick at it, whether they like it or not. You know, in life, if you're on a pathway to a destination where all of a sudden you've realised you don't actually want to go there anymore, it's okay to get off of that, say, train, turn round and take the next train back or in a different direction. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to completely go the opposite way because we have one life and don't live your life heading towards a place where you know all of a sudden you don't want to go.
Hey, Ryan, life is impermanent, my friend. So yeah, feel free to change. And change can be challenging, can be difficult, can be uncomfortable. People may not support you on occasions because they don't understand where you're operating from. But hey, crack on. There is always, I like to say there is always something great on the other side of change, or something great or success on the other side of fear, or on the other side of that hill, however metaphorically you want to express it. But yeah, go through stuff, You're not happy where you are, see how you can pivot. That's life in the end. We're always, alive. We're bubbly. Make sure you remain bubbly.
I love that, man. And you mentioned something there which was about change is painful. It's uncomfortable. And I want to ask you now a question about you obviously took the uncomfortable action to, say, visit a different country when you was younger, and to obviously learn different languages, which you mentioned. So obviously for me, I'm trying to learn Spanish at the minute, and it's so difficult. It's so uncomfortable. But like you mentioned there, on the other side of this barrier, this challenge is the life that I want, the next best version of myself. So anybody that is, say, fearing taking uncomfortable action or fearing change or fearing, say, pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone, what sort of tips or advice or suggestions could you give to the listeners here?
Well, when it comes to fear, I always like to say, first of all, face it. Okay? What is that fear? What is that thing? What is it? Face it. Don't shy away from it. Look to understand it. So you face it, which is the F for fear. Then you go and embrace it. Let me just see, what am I gonna do with this? Is there anything I can do with it? Is there anything I can learn from it? This is where you go and embrace and you start thinking, what's on the other side of it? Then you go and act on it. Hey, I'm afraid of traveling. I'm afraid of public speaking. I'm afraid of whatever that might be. I'm afraid of, making mistakes when I'm speaking in public, like on a session like this. So when you go and act on it, then you take a tiny action. I always recommend baby steps, depending on the size of that fear in your own head. And then you do one thing. So it can be, okay, look, if I'm struggling with my public speaking, imagine there's a mosquito just flying around in here. If I'm struggling with my public speaking, then it might be for me just to speak in front of 2 or 3 people instead of just going for the big stage or looking to put myself in an uncomfortable place where I may just freeze instead. So again, you have the F where you go and face it. You have the E when you go and embrace it. You have the A, you act on it, and then you finally have the R of fear where you actually go and rethink it. Okay, what have I done? What did I get out of it? What would I do next? And then you have a structure. So next time you're feeling a bit uncomfortable about change, uncomfortable because you're experiencing fear, which by the way is very normal and it is great because it only means you're developing, you're growing, you're discovering new things about yourself. Go, face it. What is that fear? Then embrace it, understand what am I going to get out of it, act on it, and next rethink. Okay, how did that go? It's actually a bit of a review process. Next. That's my view on that, my friend.
Man, I love the way that you just said that as well. And I personally have two meanings for fear as well. And the two different meanings that I personally believe fear stands for is when you feel fear, you can either do these two things. You either freeze, evaluate, and reverse, or focus, evolve, and relax. And the choice is completely yours. So many people say, feel the fear, see an obstacle, see a challenge, and they just freeze, literally like a rabbit in the headlight. And they just start turning back saying, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do this. They come up with all these things in their mind for why they can't and they shouldn't do these things. Or on the other hand, you can face your fears, focus on what it is that you truly want, and just chill, relax, like trust the process. There's a saying, and it's about just trusting the process, you know, like
Mm.
because you never know what's going to happen in life. Like things happen, and we can't choose what happens a lot of the time, but you can control the controllable. So as long as you focus on the things that you can control, then you're more likely to be able to overcome these challenges in the future.
Absolutely, brother. You can always choose your responses to life. So absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I do like those two angles. Yeah, you either freeze or you focus. Bang! Focus a bit more, people listening to Ryan today.
Thank you so much, man. So moving on, I want to ask you actually about influence because you mentioned the word influence. So how important would you say it is for individuals to influence maybe themselves, maybe other people, or what does the word influence mean to you? And how can someone use it in their life?
Influence for me is about the impact you can create on others. Okay? And we are always influencing people. You and I are influencing each other right now, okay? Through what we're sharing. Normal, it happens. It happens all the time in our human interactions. So for me, influence is being intentional about the impact you want to have on people day in and day out. And in order for this to happen, as you mentioned, you need to learn how to influence yourself so you know what's going on inside you in order to choose your responses to the situations that present themselves to you on a day to day. Influence for me, it's a deeper level of connection as well. I like to say, look, we meet and we met for the first time, remember, after the pandemic, Ryan, you and I. And at that moment, there is a first impression that takes place. And that first impression has to do with the way in which we engage, okay? And that's quite superficial still. But then as we continue to interact, because we've got, a good intention inside us, I'd like to believe, then that goes into trust, the trust building process as human beings. You know what? Yeah, I'm happy to jump on this call because of that conversation we had back then, for example. And then I've been seeing your posts and you've seen mine. Yeah, let's just re-engage. So there's that trust. And after this call, the trust is going to be even greater. It's just that like that piggy bank where you're adding coins and it's growing, right? Be mindful because trust, you can develop trust, but you can smash that piggy bank and lose it in seconds. But then finally, after you have that trust, that's what I call influence. It's a deeper level of connection. But all of those other stages need to happen. And that's why I always invite people to be intentional, but know how you are engaging with others on a day to day. Think about how they're perceiving you. Be open to feedback. Look for ways in which you can build trust, especially when it comes to leadership, working, with teams, achieving greater results, and then finally achieving that level of connection, which I speak about in the book again, which is about creating a greater impact. So I'll finish the influence piece with this. You're talking to me right now, Ryan, and I've been feeling quite blue today because of the cold. I felt, it's been painful, put it this way. But now I'm gaining so much from your energy and this conversation that very likely the next call I'm going to have changed my state for the better, and I'm going to have a greater impact on that person. And then that person is going to go and it's going to have a greater impact on the other person. Think about the ripple effect of influence. And it all starts with you thinking about how you want to positively impact them. Yes, how do you want to positively impact them?
Thank you, man, so much for that also. And, I done an Instagram live a while back when I was in Chile. And I said that for me personally, every conversation, every interaction with every single person that I meet, whether it's online, in person, for instance, that I'm very aware of the impact that I'm having or the energy that I'm giving off to somebody. And I'm very wary of my words and how I'm making that person feel because I mentioned when I've been traveling through Latin America since April 2022, I've met many people, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people now, and some of those people I may potentially never ever meet again. So I want to make sure that the words and the energy that I give off is going. They're going to remember who Ryan Nurse is. He was that guy. He made me feel this certain way. He made me smile. He said a word that I took with me, like maybe some sort of quote or saying that I've said. And like for me personally, I want to have an impact on every single person that I meet because I believe like at the end of our lives, people only remember how you made them feel and how you say had a bigger impact on the world and say the love you shared, for instance, the words that you give and the energy as well. Like people always remember people's energy. So moving on to the next questions then, you mentioned this earlier actually about say having global impact, having a big impact, living life intentionally with purpose to help other people, for instance. So what would you say? Let me ask you a question. What would you say, Jose, is the meaning of life?
Oh, dearie me, what is the meaning of life? Well, you know what? Sometimes I think there is no meaning to life, so we're just here, and then we decide to create a reason for living. So you got me today on that one. But then, if we're gonna spend time here, it's down to what you want, people, really, because right now I want to impact others, but maybe in 10 years' time, I just want to spend time with my wife and my cat and not see anyone, and it's okay as well. So it's not just about, creating this larger impact, which is what I'm standing for today, but it's also, coming to terms with reality. Life is impermanent. Many things can happen, and then you decide to do something else that hasn't such a great impact. But again, that's how you decide to live your life, which I think is about that respecting others and their journeys. That would be a lovely meaning of life, respecting others and their journeys. That would give me greater meaning than just impacting people. Yeah. I'm gonna sit with that one, Ryan. That just came to mind thanks to your question.
That's really, yeah, very profound, and yeah, I love what you said about respecting other people's journeys because look, I've been there and I'm sure many people listening, we almost try to push our beliefs onto other people. Like I've done it before, like for instance, when I started on this, say, my personal path of purpose back in really 2020, and I'm like learning things, I'm reading books, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm just absorbing all the information from around me. And for me, it's like leveling my life up so much. So then I'm going out there, I'm trying to force it on other people. Like, yeah, you should read a book too. You should listen to a podcast. You should do this. Like, no, this isn't the way to go. And like, I was wrong to do that. Like, it's okay to set an example and lead others by being a change that you want to see in the world, leading by example, showing others the benefits of, say, improving yourself, for instance. But you don't need to force it on other people. And I've done that for a long time.
Mm.
So let me ask you a question then. For anybody that's potentially has, let's say, let's use this example. Let's say someone's listening to this, they're 25 years old and they're living at home with their parents, maybe a couple of siblings, and their siblings are very negative and they're always putting them down and saying, you can't do this and you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't travel, don't change your job, for instance. And now that they're starting to consume, say, content online, they've discovered Tony Robbins on YouTube, for instance.
Mm.
And now all of a sudden they're trying to have a battle with their family and trying to force them to see what they're seeing, trying to say, look, no, look, I'm going down this path, but like trying to shove it in their face. What's the best way that someone can potentially show their family that they don't want to take the route that their family believes that they should take, for instance?
Well, don't shove it in their faces, first of all. So I would say if you go into a personal development journey like you and I have, and potentially some of the listeners as well, I would go back to respecting where they are operating from, respecting what they stand for. And then, as you mentioned, you can decide to show them and lead them by example, could be one of them. Compassion and empathy are key. because Ryan, I've made loads of mistakes and I keep on making mistakes, and that's how I learn. Well, I also learn by reading and doing some other things. It's not just mistakes. But then I remember when I started with this journey, I mean, there was a big, imagine, I see it this way. We are on alignment right now, but then things happen to you, things happen to me, and we may be misaligned. Yeah. And that's what happened with me and my family for a while. But then, with time and patience, hey, there have been some changes. It's never kind of the same, but there have been some changes that have influenced each other. And also by finding the way in which you can, because you cannot get people to change, but you can influence them by always finding new ways in which I can get information to my parents, for instance, or to my brother, or to people close to me. It develops my flexibility as well and my adaptability, which is, those are some key traits when you're communicating. And it's beautiful when you then see change and you notice healing taking place in your relationships because you manage to operate differently, adapt, and be more flexible. So again, in order to answer your question more succinctly, I would say be respectful, understand where they're operating from, but never give up on people. Find a way in which you can, and you will know them better than we do right here, right now. Find a way in which you can influence them somehow. That's the beauty of it. And if you develop that, hey, these are the people that brought you to life, that rightly or wrongly have given you their best version for you to be where you are today. So be grateful as well. Also, you are where you are today because of them and your environment. So there is a piece in there of learning as well. You wouldn't be here right now learning what you're learning if it wasn't for them. So you can find appreciation in loads of things. I'll stop now.
Thank you so much, my friend. So something just triggered in my mind about the power of our environment. So obviously you've spoken to hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of people over the years. And many of those, I believe, would be in a group, in a community, whether it's a business, whether it's in, say, an event, for instance. So could you talk to us about the power of people or the power of your surroundings, the power of community?
Wow, big time. Look, I always like to invite people. I don't like to say you need to, you have to. I always come from the invitation standpoint that, and hear me out, it is good, hear me out again, people, it is good to compare yourselves. What, Jose? What on earth? People are saying it's not good to compare yourselves. Remember the intention. So go and compare yourself, but then always looking for an angle of improvement. What do I mean by this? Ryan and I have a good connection, but then I see Ryan is doing certain things, imagine that I'm not. Hey, instead of pushing myself down, oh no, Ryan is doing it, Jose is not doing it, it's because I've got this accent and this and that. No, wow. What is that thing that Ryan is doing that I could be doing? How can I connect with Ryan? How can I engage with him in order to understand his process? That's the beauty of creating a community with that purpose, because when you're looking to improve and you're using that comparison under a positive umbrella, then you're looking to connect with the people that are achieving those things you want. And then you're being intentional with the people you spend time with. So every time I'm thinking, okay, who am I going to be hanging out with? Hey, who's achieving something that I would like to achieve? And I know I have a friend that could potentially connect me with someone else. And my inner circle changes, but then it's always somehow in alignment with that moment in my life. But be proactive with it. Always, I mean, who could I be speaking to? Who could I be learning from? Not just the books. I mean, it's just interactions like this. And then that keeps you also interested, that keeps you curious. And also, you begin to discover things that will definitely impact your journey. And you may end up finding that, hey, even though I wanted to go there, oh, but this sounds very appealing. Let me explore it. It's the same version. Oh, I wanted to go to Australia, but now I go to Sweden. Let's give Sweden a go.
Man, that's amazing. And something that really stood out for me there was about positively comparing yourself under that positive umbrella which you mentioned. And for me, that's incredible, because you know how many of us, like, we do it on a daily basis without even realizing? As soon as we pick our phone up and click on social media, we're scrolling and we're comparing our lives to people's Maseratis, people's holidays, people's clothes, for instance. We're doing it. Like, we don't even realize we're doing it, but we are doing it on a daily basis. But from a positive point of view, you said it, and I've mentioned it many times before also, is if you see somebody, and I mentioned it in my book as well, if you see somebody that has something that you want, let's say, for instance, you see somebody that's driving an amazing car, your dream car, for instance, don't look at them and say, be hateful towards them and be like, why have they got that? I wish I had that. And coming from a place of negativity yourself. However, flip it for gratitude, for positivity. And I feel this is a great way. Like, for instance, using this what we're going to talk now about the car. So if you see someone, for instance, with your dream car, go up to them, congratulate them, tell them how nice the car is, and then just ask them, what did you need to do in order to get this? It starts a great conversation. You're probably going to make a new friend, and you never know what, say, opportunities that could lead on to. So rather than, say, comparison, wishing that you had someone else's life, be grateful for the life that you have and look for the lessons that you can learn from those individuals that, say, potentially have the things that you want or are in the positions that you would like to be.
Spot on, my friend. Absolutely. And the same applies, at work, imagine, and you see the people that get along with loads of people and are great are at connecting and developing long-term relationships. Well, there is a way of thinking that leads their behaviors and their actions. Explore. And in that sense, as you well said, it's going to create a connection. And it's much better to go and just be curious. What can I learn from this?
So we're going to go back a couple of steps. You mentioned something a
Right.
moment ago. I heard you say about, you said, I make mistakes quite often. So many people fear things because they don't want to make mistakes, for instance. I believe mistakes are actually must takes. That you must take these actions and fail at these things in order to learn, grow, improve. Because if you're not ready to fail, then you're not ready to learn. And if you're not ready to learn, you're definitely not ready to succeed. So could you talk to us about failure, about making mistakes, and how you can use them in your advantage?
People ask me when it comes to my speaking, they go, why didn't you write the book in Spanish? Why don't you speak in Spanish? As in, of course I speak Spanish. Why don't you do your presentations in Spanish? Why don't you do this and that? And I always like to say it's because I feel most vulnerable when I'm doing it in English and most challenged as well. And also, it is another way of leading by example, showing that it is possible just to put yourself out there, making mistakes along the way, as you will say, learning along the process. But then it's about, for me, it's being alive. I've mentioned a few times this word today. It's being alive. It makes me feel alive, making those mistakes and learning from them. And it can be tiny little mistakes. It can be just in my pronunciation every now and then, tiny little things, but hey, it's part of who I am. So you could say failure. I mean, there's some sayings out there, first attempt in learning. I would say loads of attempts in learning, but you keep on doing it until you refine it. I am where I am today because I decided to pursue something, but I make loads of mistakes still today. But then that's how you refine yourself. And mistakes, I like to link with feedback as well, because feedback is another thing, it's another channel or a communication piece from which you can learn a lot. So I'm going to add, when it comes to failure, are the mistakes we're making, but also what people tell us, especially when people tell us we've done something wrong, something bad, or yeah, imagine I'm thinking about a piece that I delivered years ago, and this trainer came to me and he said to me just like this bluntly, he said, Jose, that was, well, I'm gonna swear, Ryan, is it okay? I mean, just a tiny little bit. He said, Jose, that was shit. And that was for me a mistake. I mean, a failure. Yes, I failed. I mean, but then exploring why that was shit. that was one of my biggest learnings. And that's enabled me to grow and develop as a trainer, a speaker, and also my business. Be ready for it. Be ready for failure. Be ready for the feedback. Be ready to receive feedback. Linking it to that was shit, and I'm not gonna swear anymore. When I first came to the UK, and my first week, I was supposed to support in the office, yeah? And I got asked by my leader, my manager back then, Alan, he said to me, Jose, can you mind the phones today? And I thought I knew English until I picked up the phone that day because they were going into a meeting. It was a small business back then. And I had this person from Dundee calling. If there's anyone from Dundee in here, that accent can be difficult to understand, especially, for a newly arrived Venezuelan in the UK. And I remember that call didn't go well. And in the end, that lady hung up. But before she hung up on me, she just went, "You're useless." She called me useless. You're just useless. Again, another piece of feedback. What was the invitation? To improve my English, to understand better the terminology, to get better at the phone. And I started learning accordingly in order to be better, so that I'm okay picking up the phone, whether a person calls from Dundee, Glasgow, not just Scottish, or anywhere in the world. Embrace the failures, embrace them, fail quickly as well. I like to, hey, yeah, what was that? Okay, incorporate it and get on with it. When people give you feedback, don't just justify it. Oh, well, I'm doing this. No, hey, say thank you, because they're taking the time to give you a piece of valuable information that they consider valuable. But it might be even more valuable for you if you take your time to receive it, to let it sink in. I don't know where I'm going with this anymore, my friend. Look, failures are key. Be ready, but also learn from them. And be open to feedback. Be open to the negative stuff that you don't like, the stuff that feel uncomfortable. That's the biggest piece anyone can give you. And instead of getting upset with that person, how dare you telling me useless? Hey, there is a piece for you. I'm not going to say thank you for calling me useless, but sit with it later on and explore.
Man,
I'm
that was
losing it, my friend. I
no
think
that
I've taken too many cold medications today.
no, that was so powerful, man. And what stood out to me was like in life, I believe there's a positive that can be extracted from every single negative in life. So rather than looking for the losses or looking at the losses, look for the lessons rather than the losses, because what you focus on expands. Like we know what you're going to focus on, you're going to get more of. So always look at the lessons in life and not the losses. But then I love
Beautiful.
what you said about you chose to choose, or you chose to choose the uncomfortable path, which was to speak in English rather than your native Spanish, which was to keep pushing yourself further and further outside of your comfort zone. Like nothing grows inside your comfort zone. The comfort zone is where your dreams go to die. However, voluntarily heading towards pain may seem quite daunting. However, taking small and frequent steps to expose yourself to fear and discomfort on a regular basis will help build the courage that you need to withstand the pain that you once thought you could not bear. And just know that courage is like a muscle and it's strengthened with use. Like the more that you head towards the pain, the more courage you're going to grow and the more confidence you're also going to grow. So you need to do the things that scare you until they don't. I'm a big believer of that. So anyone that's about to make, say, a big life-changing decision after this, listening to this episode today, what piece of advice could you give them in, say, making decisions, making uncomfortable decisions to take those uncomfortable actions outside of their comfort zone?
Well, people, don't make any life-changing decisions after listening to me today, okay? No life-changing decisions. But start taking some small decisions. And you will know they are the right ones because they may scare you a little bit. And as you begin to make more uncomfortable decisions day in and day out, that's going to create a ripple effect. It's just like the ladder, and then you take little steps every day. Take your little steps, but always take one. Take one. Hey, Adriana, I love you back. Just take one little step every day. And when it comes to decisions, feel them, rationalize them, and act on them. I haven't got much more to say on that one. What I want people is just to take, and that's always my invitation, do one little thing every day. Because in the process of wanting to achieve and change, there is one thing that can happen. Well, many things can happen, but one of them is that we can become quite hard on ourselves. So take care of yourselves. Be kind to you. Be mindful of how you're speaking to yourself when you go through your failures and those challenges. And always take an action. Take a tiny action. I'm saying this because I personally, and I know from the people I train and coach, there is always that kind of level of pressure. Yes, we need to achieve, we need to do. I didn't do today as much as I wanted to, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I know this week hasn't been as productive. Hey, you only do what you're doing. You only do what you can do. Yes, push yourself, but tiny little steps. I'm going to keep on going, tiny little steps. Be kind, because otherwise, you may have a big dream, and next year you are not there to live that dream because you've fallen sick, or you're struggling, or some people in your circle are not part of that circle anymore because you didn't take care of them. So as you go through changes as well, think about the cost of opportunity. Every action you take will have a cost of opportunity. So it's the law of sacrifice, as Mr. John Maxwell says. Be mindful of the sacrifices you're making as well. Are they worth it? I'll finish on that note.
Very powerful, my friend. Thank you so much. So, as we bring this to an end, my friend, I'd like to ask you the 5 quick questions that I have for you. So,
Oh,
if you're okay to go ahead, I'm going to get going.
yeah, come on, of course. No,
Okay,
I'm
man.
scared. I'm scared, Ryan. Go.
Okay, so number 1 is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received and why?
Brother, I'm going to say recently it was that piece of feedback. Well, recently, as in since I started with the speaking business, that person, that trainer saying my presentation had been shit. That was potentially the one that has had the greatest impact in terms of my improvement. Not nicely delivered, but it was right, and the timing was good as well.
Amazing. So, on the flip side of that, what is the worst piece of advice you have ever received and acted on, and what was the result?
All right, and I don't know, my friend, because I think every piece of advice, I mean, tends to be good if you look into it a little bit. So bad or worst piece of advice, you know what? I don't know that one because I live by everything. There's always like a positive in something. So, bro, I'll go. I haven't got an answer for that.
That's a good answer for me, my friend. Thank you so much. So, next one would be, what is the main thing that you had to unlearn whilst growing up? Because I'm a big believer we need to constantly be learning as we get older, but also we need to unlearn a lot of those, say, childhood programs. So, what was one of the main things that you had to unlearn throughout your journey?
Well, unlearn. The one thing I've learned, let me flip it and see if it works. The one thing I've learned and that I proactively work on is to have the confidence to speak less. So that's always, so you could say I'm always on learning how to speak less. Hmm? So that's my thing. How can I become a better listener and have the confidence to speak less and be okay with it? I'm glad I knew that one. I could answer that question.
There's so much power in the pause and speaking less. Like when I started out on my journey of speaking, I used to believe that I had to say every single thing and get it, like it's almost like I'm never going to see that person again. So it's like blah, 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 get it all out. I don't really care about anyone else. I just had to say what I had to say. That's not what life's about. Any conversation is a relationship. So allow people space and time, and give yourself permission, like you mentioned, to be okay with not saying anything and to listen. Because active listening is a skill that can take literally a lifetime to master. And some people never even master it. And, you know,
Agreed, brother. Agreed.
so Next question is
So how many questions do I have left? Just
you got
so that I prepare. Now I'm
two
nervous because I
two
couldn't answer the
left.
second one.
You got
Two left.
two
Okay, okay.
left.
Right,
So,
right.
what is the greatest lesson that you learned from one of your most painful life experiences?
So the greatest lesson, well, the most painful experience, and when I say recent, in the past 10 years, was my divorce. That was very painful. And the greatest lesson was to improve my communication, not to leave things unsaid, address challenges, and learn to be okay during difficult conversations. That was one of the main learnings that I took away. And that plus my self-discovery journey, because in the past I wouldn't reflect as well, not even close to the level of my reflection nowadays. So I would say reflection as well. I'm way more reflective. I reflect often. I'm always mindful of how I'm communicating, mindful of what's not being said in order to address it, bring it, to the table. Yeah, and then this links to influence. If I want to influence people, positively influence people, then I need to reflect and learn every day how to influence myself.
I'm a big believer on self-reflection and having awareness of oneself, self-awareness, because you can't improve what you don't know needs improving. I'm a big believer on self-reflection, self-awareness. So yeah, thank you again so much for sharing that with us.
Ryan, thank you, my friend. I just came to mind. The worst advice I received was to invest in the forest market. So that's probably the worst advice I've ever received. And I followed that advice without learning too much around the market and its consequences.
Mm.
So the biggest learning for me, which is not about the forex market anymore, but it's just to take time, which I link it to this. I'll take time to reflect and think before I act, and also think before I respond. So again, yeah, be careful with the forex market. Learn properly first. I wanted to answer that one, brother. I felt it was just there in the back of my mind. I need to come back to that one. I'm sure I've received bad advice, so that was one of them.
Yeah, it goes back to what I just mentioned about like there's so much power in the pause. Like just think about it because many of us see these shiny pennies in our lives and we just like, right, we're going for it. And we just
Yeah.
go like this, blinded, literally blinded. We think, for instance, let's use the Forex. We think, oh, we're going to become rich overnight. Like, no, no. So just give yourself a moment, do the research that you need to do. Just be very aware of who you're receiving the information from as well, I believe.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Always question these things. Exactly. It's just that reflection piece is so important. Yeah. Reflect more often, people. I will reflect more often as well.
So, next question is knowing what you know now, what one piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Look, going back to beliefs, I mean, I am where I am today because everything that's happened in my life. So I wouldn't change anything right now. Okay. I wouldn't go back. I'm happy now. I made peace with my divorce and all of the things that I've done. So the piece of advice, I would probably give it to my current self, which is the only moment I'm in control of. And I'll say to myself right now, keep on reflecting. I'll say, keep on engaging with incredible people like Ryan. Keep on preparing. Keep on, keep on living your version of the meaning of life. And I would like that for everyone. Keep on living your own version of your meaning of life. And as long as you're not hurting or damaging people, hey, always look to have that positive influence angle present. That'd be my advice, my friend.
Wow, I think that was absolutely beautiful the way that you worded that. So I would say that we've come to an end. However, I have a bonus question for you.
Okay.
So the bonus question is, what is the best thing about being Jose?
The best thing about being Jose, I'm going to say being capable of getting excited by every human interaction. I would say that's one of those things that it just happens naturally. And I would say that's the one I'm walking away with. Yeah. Getting excited about human interactions. That's probably one of the best things of being Jose. Because if I could have less hair, I probably would.
I love that, man. Thank you so much, Jose. So I just want to say thank you for being here today. I've really enjoyed this episode. So many takeaways for the individuals who will listen back to this as well to take away to improve their lives. So, for anyone who is listening that wants to connect with you further, for instance, follow your journey, you mentioned your book there. How can people connect with you further, my friend?
Look, because of the work I've been doing throughout the years, if you type my name on Google, Jose Ucar, then you will find the book, you will find my website, you will find my blogs, you will find my online course, which is available for free. It's on my joseucar.com website. And I'm going to plug in Global Influence, guys, which is being launched officially this Friday. So,
Wow.
yeah, be ready, grab your copy, get in touch with me if you want a signed copy. I'll be happy to sign your copy as well. And Ryan, my friend, it's been a pleasure. I I do, we need to have a conversation because I've been comparing myself with some of the stuff you're doing in terms of the traveling. I want more of that, but I guess we can talk about that offline soon.
Nos vemos, papi. Nos vemos.
Nos vemos. Excelente, brother.
Okay, my friend. Thank you so much. I
All
really
the
enjoyed
best.
it. And yeah, we're gonna catch up soon, my friend. Thank you so much and speak soon.
All the best, brother. Ciao,
Bye
ciao.
bye. Ciao.
Bye.